Good evening, everyone. At the outset, I'm really thankful to my all group members, those who are esteemed as far as the infertility and endoscopy is considered, because in their country as well as in their own city, they are experts in their field. They are known gynecologists. So I'm really thankful to all of you who had make me feel special. Those who are attended my lectures, and not only that, they are come down to me. We formed our group, that is educational group, and it has only on the Telegram. Some of the people was not on the Telegram, and they downloaded it. They may have messaged me personally, and they may make it a history that our group is now the group of people more than 2000, and that is not only a national forum, it is an international group where most of the people from Iraq, from Baghdad, from UK, from USA, they come down to this particular platform, and I am very happy that it is a educational platform only, because there are certain posts that has been given in Telegram. So I purposefully made that comment that one should have just follow the rules of education, because this is the platform where all of us are joined together only to share our knowledges, because all of us are expert in our field. All of us are expert in the endoscopy. So pardon me, I was a little bit in a hurry today, but as I promised to you, because there is a one emergency operative that has to be done by me, but till the anesthetist and my team will arrive, I'll be having a time of maybe a 35 to 40 minutes. So I'll be able to talk to you today everything about IUI, because that was the things which has been talked, because we covered the stimulation protocols in IUI, we covered a semen preparation in IUI. So we covered I have not covered yet the luteal phase support, but I will be just now talking about the luteal phase support in IUI cycle. There are the questions which has been put up in the group of ours, in the phase group also, as well as the Telegram group. So I'll just come down to the questions first, and then we'll discuss. If you people have any questions, just write your questions here, so that I can see the questions and I can interact with you. If you don't want to display your names, I will not take names or anything like that. So any silly questions, even if you find it silly, for others it may be valuable. So don't hesitate in asking any type of the questions, because this is the two-way communication. I wanted to get something from you people also. So we'll be just interacting with each other. So to start with the questions, there are the questions that I just came across. How the stimulation protocol should be going from one like a clomiphene citrate and the letrozole and then gonadotropin. So as far as the IUI is considered, I preferably go for a clomiphene citrate first, or there is a guidelines that the clomiphene citrate should be advocated as the first line of a treatment as far as the ovulation induction is considered, and that to be given with the minimal dose, because if you go through the literature, those are the patients who are normogonadotropic and normoestrogenic patients. They will give us a better ovulation induction with the 50 milligram, and then if it has not been working, then you can go switch over to the 100 milligram of clomiphene citrate. And with the clomiphene citrate, if it has not been given the response with the 150 milligram, you can switch over to the letrozole. There is the question on the letrozole called as a resistance. See, as far as the literature is considered, we are knowing there is a clomiphene resistance. The clomiphene resistance is a one that when you're talking about the resistance, when you're giving the clomiphene citrate of 150 milligram and the patient is not showing any signs of the ovulation, then we called as it's a clomiphene resistance. Similarly, there was the question from, I think, Dr. Ahmad. Yeah, so he asked about letrozole, the letrozole and its resistance. The letrozole resistance is a documented entity. If you are giving a letrozole is 2.5 milligram for 5 days, and if she is not showing any signs of ovulation, we called as it is a letrozole all resistance. The letrozole resistance is come in a particular set of patients, where in those are the patients who are a polycystic ovaries, where you can get on a day 2 the LH is on a higher side. So definitely those patients usually doesn't show any signs of the follicular growth when you are giving a letrozole 2.5 milligram. So that was the one of the question they asked me about the letrozole. Secondly, there was the question about the extended protocol in which patients I will be giving. The extended protocol of the letrozole is only been given when I found out there is a no growth after 2.5 milligram of clomiphene citrate of a letrozole is been given for 5 days. After that, the patient is not showing any signs of a dominant follicle. You can extend this particular regime again for the 5 days, and that is the 10 days letrozole protocol. So the letrozole protocol, once you started, you can extend it, because once you are extending the letrozole, the FSH window will increase and you will have a better follicle will be developed after that. Secondly, about there was a question about the thin endometrium. It was really asked in the past also. When you are, I told you, all of you, that whenever we are giving a letrozole, there is nothing like a thin endometrium will come. But usually most of the patients are on the clomiphene citrate, and when the clomiphene citrate has been given, usually they shows the thin endometrium. The thin endometrium is because of the drug itself and not because of the pathology. If with the clomiphene citrate, as all of us are knowing, the 85% of the clomiphene citrate stays in the circulation for over a period of 1 week. So once we are persistently given a clomiphene citrate, the clomiphene citrate usually has this effect on the endometrium, and that's why we are not going to have that much effect of on the endometrium. And still, with the letrozole, if you are switching the drug from the clomiphene citrate to the letrozole, and with the letrozole again you are seeing that there is an endometrium which is not growing. Mind well, when you are doing those who are joined a little bit late, I really ask all of you to just write down the questions here, so I can able to answer them. If at all there is a questions regarding your, yes, Niharika, thank you for that comment, and thank you Dr. Parag and Dr. Kirloskar attending my session. I want all of you to just write down the questions pertaining to the IUI. Any questions anyhow. There was the one query that I will be showing you live about the semen preparation. Because of this lockdown, I am not really having those kind of things live, but maybe in a 1 week or maybe in a 2 weeks, we are going to show you the live procedures of a semen preparation for IUI, that is a density gradient and swim up technique, what we have done in our labs. And I really want all of you to ask me the questions. By the time there was a question about the thin endometrium, what I was talking about. If you are giving a letrozole, and after the letrozole you think the endometrium is not growing, think for the 2 lines. First of all, you need to do the ultrasonography by yourself. See how much is the volume of the endometrium. That is the first. Secondly, you have to see what is the architecture of the endometrium, what is the vascularity of the endometrium. All of us are knowing that the endometrium has the zones as far as the vascularity is considered. If your vascularity is less, you can give a sildenafil. That sildenafil has to be given 25 milligram per vaginally thrice a day. And in that, if your vascularity is compromised, you can give this kind of a treatment, and see again you have to assess the endometrium. Usually endometrium is dynamic. So when you are calling the patient, the endometrial growth is somewhere in, around 1 millimeter. So if the growth is again getting a satisfactory, it is better. But with the subsequent treatment or with the subsequent addition of the estrogen also, if you are not getting the endometrium, which is, you need to be a good endometrium, then definitely you have to think of the infective pathology. Do a menstrual blood, a TB PCR, that is a mRNA PCR. Think of the causative factor, and then you can deal with the infective factors. When to add the gonadotropins, either the clomiphene or the letrozole. Sujata, when you are talking about addition of the gonadotropins, there are the different protocols. Usually in my scenario, when the patients come with the clomiphene resistance, or for that matter letrozole resistance, what we give the gonadotropins initially for 3 to 5 days, and after that, in order to prevent the premature LH surge, we gave a clomiphene citrate. The clomiphene citrate has an effect in order to prevent the premature LH surge. So antagonist is not that much required, and if at all you wanted to go for antagonist cycle, I preferably, when you are giving a gonadotropin, see for the dominant follicle, how much is the dominant follicle is increasing. If it is having the dominant follicle of 14 millimeters or 15 millimeters, then you think of addition of antagonist, not the fixed dose, or maybe a fixed schedule like a 14 millimeter. When the dominant follicles is 14 millimeter, you give an antagonist. In that particular scenario, you can start antagonist also. Usually in IUI cycles, antagonist requirement may be a tune of 1 to 2 injections only, and then that will taken care of premature ALS surge. So I am really, again, there is a questions. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Anil sir. It's a real pleasure, and watching me live, and you also on my platform. I'm really very glad that the stature of academic stature what you are having, sir. It's a pleasure that you are watching me. Any of corrections, sir, from my side, let me know, because always you are one person who always keep talking to me and telling me what I should be doing. So there is a question from Arun. When do you prefer swim up technique over a double density gradient in a IUI patients? See, I will be only preferring a density gradient where the semen count is not that great. Again, there is a very much pus cells in it, or there is a teratozoospermia, then definitely a density gradient will be helpful in order to give a total motile count, a good yield in that particular patients. So another questions on the Telegram about doing clomiphene citrate luteal phase. See, there are the papers of giving a clomiphene citrate in a luteal phase in order to, when you are giving a withdrawal. Basically, these are the patients of a PCOS patient, or a subset of if you are going to the WHO group of anovulatory patient. It comes on day type 2 or group 2 patients, where they are mainly a PCOS patient, where they have a LH on a higher side, so they are usually anovulatory, irregular cycles are there. So in those patients, you will be giving a pre-treatment like a withdrawal. For a withdrawal bleed, what you can give a non-ethisterone, or you can give a estrogen, but usually in those patients, non-ethisterone is usually a better drug for a withdrawal. And once the non-ethisterone is given, for the last dose of the non-ethisterone, you can start with the clomiphene citrate. So once the clomiphene citrate has 5 days of what it will have, when you are giving clomiphene citrate in luteal phase, always the action of that particular, because all of us are knowing there is the waves of the follicles in every cycles. We have a follicular phase of the waves of the antral follicles, we have luteal phase of the follicles. So in the same way, if you are having a luteal phase stimulation with the clomiphene citrate, by the time the drug will act, it will always, the cohort of the follicles is going to get recruited, so you will have this effect. But the anti-estrogenic effect of the clomiphene citrate will not be there when we don't want the endometrium to get hampered. So I think I answered that question. Again, I'll come back to the questions which are there. Okay, I want many of you people to just there is the scrolling down, so you can write your questions there. So I'll answer all of them, because I dedicatedly given this topic for 1 hour, because after that then will be next time I'll be talking about embryo grading or something like that. What to do if the IUI catheter cannot negotiate the internal os? Can you dilate with the Hagar dilator? Mind well, Sandeep sir, I think IUI catheter is not negotiating. It means that it is better you are not doing the scan by yourself. If you are doing the scan by yourself, what I mean by it, if you are doing the scan by yourself, you will know what is the position of the cervix, what is the position of the uterus, whether the uterus is acutely anteverted or it is a retroverted. In one situation, if it is acutely anteverted, partially filled bladder, and if you try to do IUI catheter negotiation, it will usually solve the problem. If it is acutely retroverted uterus, what is the trick that you can catch hold of the anterior lip of the cervix, you can straighten up the canal, and then you can try to negotiate with the IUI catheter. But if that is not the case and you are not going to have that particular thing is negotiable, then you can use even if the amniotransfer catheter, because amniotransfer catheter is usually a very soft catheter that can be negotiated from the internal os, and the last resort can be a dilator. But I think that one should not be doing it, because if there is a bleeding or there is a false passage, you are not knowing about it. It is better to do in that case a sonography guided procedure, that is the IUI. I hope Sandeep sir, I answered that particular question of yours. Then coming to the next question, on day 2 E2 is less than 30, letrozole should not be given. Yeah, definitely Suresh Kumar, when you are talking about the letrozole to be act, I think the estrogen should be more than 60 to usually give the better results when the letrozole is being used. Okay, Yojna Agarwal, if we given a 5 milligram of letrozole, we need to give 2.5 milligram BD or 5 milligram OD. See, whenever you are giving any drug, you need to understand what is the peak of the drug and what is the sustainability of the effect. So it is hardly make any difference of 2.5 milligram twice a day or once a day, because many literatures have shown that the 2.5 milligram is the ideal dose. But if you wanted to give a higher dose, it is better that 2.5 milligram in a stepwise manner, that you can increase the dose. It is better that in that way, rather than just giving a larger dose. CC Pallavi, already I explained about the CC dose in a luteal phase, so I think that is already been covered. From which day it should be better to start the progesterone after the IUI? Yeah, Dr. Nitin Patel, it's a good question. In which patient? But first of all, we need to address in which patient we should be giving a luteal phase support, and in which patient we should not give a luteal phase support. The patients who are going for a natural cycle IUI need not to give progesterone support, because all of us are knowing when you are doing the ovulation study, after the ovulation there is a corpus luteum formation, and corpus luteum of the menstruation or corpus luteum of the pregnancy. When you are talking about the corpus luteum of the menstruation, that much progesterone is needed to sustain the luteal phase. So in that case, you should not be given any progesterone support as far as the natural cycle IUI is considered. But once you are going for the clomiphene cited or oral ovulation, again there are the Cochrane review or many literature which will suggest you there is no need of giving any other progesterone support. But once you are started with the gonadotropin's letrozole or a clomiphene cited letrozole, it is always advisable that you should be what do you call as given a progesterone support. But the progesterone support usually, then what progesterone support, one may ask me, the usually progesterone support what we give, just a minute, I'll take a water. Yeah, so the progesterone support what we can give is a vaginal progesterone. Maximum dose is 600 to 800 milligram, which will suffice the progesterone support. But if at all you wanted to give oral progesterone, that is dydrogesterone, can be given a 10 milligram twice a day, or now they have come up with the study that the 10 milligram thrice a day can be given. But for if you are talking about the cost effectiveness and as far as the economical aspects, I think vaginal progesterone is much more cheaper rather than the dydrogesterone which is available in India. You can definitely give a vaginal progesterone gel or maybe a capsule. Ideal dose is of 600 to 800 milligram. Okay. If we give a clomiphene citrate 100 milligram, it should be a 50 milligram BD. I think it's a 100 milligram once a dose you can be given. There is no role of giving a clomiphene citrate in a twice a day manner. Absolutely not. It has to be given once a day, 100 milligrams, because the tablet also comes in 100 milligrams. So there is no need that you can divide further the doses. Manisha, yeah. In adenomyosis, along with the letrozole, there is a role of medroxyprogesterone. In adenomyosis, I think the better to identify I will take this particular lecture of adenomyosis and the session on it, because I feel the adenomyosis, there are the certain group of the adenomyosis where we can definitely thinking of surgery, because the surgery will give us a better outcome rather than just a conservative treatment. Because we do adenomyomectomy surgery, there is called as a flap technique, or we can just do like a myomectomy if the adenomyoma is less. I'll go into the details of it, but you are asking about the progesterone, medroxyprogesterone. Definitely you can give a medroxyprogesterone for adenomyosis, but it is better to give a depot if it is. You need to understand whether it is a localized adenomyoma or whether it is a generalized adenomyosis. Adenomyosis, if it is a focal and if it is a really a bigger size, it is better to undergo a laparoscopic surgery for adenomyosis. If it is a generalized adenomyosis, then it is better to give a medical line of a treatment. For that matter, I prefer a GnRH depot, agonist depot, that is Leupride depot, 3.65 milligram per month, once a month for 3 months. Yes, Mansi, do you prefer a partially full bladder IUI? For not for Mansi, it's not for all the patients. I will prefer partially full bladder. For certain patients, definitely I'll go for the partial full bladder. If it is a difficult IUI, or if with the sonography I can find out if it is acutely anteverted uterus, there is a difference between the angulation between the cervix and the uterus, then it is better to do a partial full bladder IUI. You prefer IUI under sonographic guidance? Renu, it's nice that you are watching me. You're a good friend of mine, Mansi, and yourself. So I'm really happy to interact with you. Not routinely, Renu, I'm not suggesting anyone should do a routine IUI under sonographic guidance, because many of the times I think the normal gynecologist, those who are practicing in India, any for that matter, not having the sonography which is readily available. So it should not be mandatory to do a IUI under sonography. No. Sujata, you are saying my voice is not audible. I think it's quite a old comment. I think so. Is my voice is audible? Is my voice is audible? Can anyone tell me whether my voice is audible or not, so that I can address back the question, sir? I am audible? Because Sujata had given us a thing that she's not audible, so I think I should ask before going to the next questions. Okay, Akhtar, I think yeah, Sonali, yes. So I'll go ahead again. There are the questions which I missed out in the middle. Okay, Mansi has asked me, do you prefer a letrozole 5 mg OD or stepwise protocol? Depending upon the previous response, Mansi, I'll decide to go for step-up protocol or maybe extended protocol. It depends upon the 2.5 mg of letrozole which has been allocated and should not shown any of the response. Then I'll go for 5 mg. And then if it is not been shown any response, if I wanted to go for metafollicular development, I'll go for a step-up protocol. Can PCOS patient having a less E2 on day 2, what indicates? Suresh Kumar, day 2 E2 in PCOS patients, usually you will not account like this, because in a PCOS we have majority of them are follicles, and all of us are knowing each follicles degrade some amount of the estrogen. So it is unlikely that in a PCOS patients you will have the less E2 on day 2, unless and otherwise she is down regulated. Priya Gupta, okay, there is a role of estradiol valerate in endometrium. Priya, I already addressed that particular issue of the thin endometrium. You can definitely give a estradiol valerate or ethinyl estradiol, but if it is whether it is a drug induced thin endometrium or whether it is actually thin endometrium, what is the vascularity, what is the pattern in IUI, any endometrium which is less than 6 millimeter or 5.6 millimeter, then we call it as a thin endometrium, but not routinely we call it as a thin endometrium. But in IVF, definitely I'll be talking this of a thin endometrium or maybe a batch IVF in a couple of my series. Yeah. Is multifollicular genesis is indication of cancellation of IUI? Naveen, multifollicular is not only the indication. Listen to me. In certain cases, we want multifollicular development, so there is no point in cancelling the cycle because of only it is a multifollicular. In which cycles I will be cancelling? If on a day of a trigger, if the follicles of 15 millimeters are more than 3 or 4, then I'll think of whether the patient is likelihood of going into OHSS or something like that. What is the previous history? Then I will think of whether to give a trigger or whether to cancel it or whether to go for a IVF cycle, turning into IVF. So just seeing the multifollicular development is not the pertaining things to think of cancellation of a cycle. Okay, Ramadevi, please explain IUI procedure. Okay, things we need to doing in IUI. Madam, I think exactly what you want, you let me know in precisely, because still we have a time of 15 minutes. All the what you beginning of the procedures till the end, I think I can show you live of doing a one IUI procedure maybe in a couple of weeks or in a month. But actually what you want, let me know so I can throw light on it, or all of us can discuss on it. Yeah, Mansi, what ovulation induction do you prefer in the patient of IUI with endometriosis in any supportive therapy added? Okay, Mansi, definitely in endometriosis, all of us are knowing that the endometriosis is a progressive disease. So better to diagnose the endometriosis. One of the patients, like what we are lacking at our side, that we are not diagnosing the endometriosis for that matter. So the patients of infertility coming down to us with the dysmenorrhea, or maybe there is a chronic pelvic pain, one should be very much eagerly doing a diagnostic hysterolaparoscopy to find out what is the stage of endometriosis. If it is a mild endometriosis, there are the different guidelines like ISHRE also, maybe you go to ASRM, the guideline says that only like waiting for 6 months also a spontaneous conception may occur. Even if it is a DIE and if you do a good surgery, I'll be showing you a DIE patients laparoscopically operative once the patients are turning in about how to do a deep infiltrating endometriosis procedures. On those patients, if you do a correct job of your laparoscopy and you get rid out of the rectal nodule also, there is a literature which has already been documented the spontaneous conception in a DIE patient also. So coming down to the ovulation induction in endometriosis is depending upon after the procedure has been done, the diagnostic laparohysteroscopy, what is the AFC of the patient, what is the age of the patient, that will be a deciding factor as far as the ovulation induction is considered. Because for a mild endometriosis, I will go for a better to go with the COH IUI and for 3 cycles. If the 3 cycles is not going to give me a better results, it is better to go for the IVF rather than again doing the IUI cycles. Again, okay, day 2 scan with the small ovaries and low reserve, it is better to start with the RFSH from day 2 for IUI. Harika, I think if you are thinking of a low reserve and small ovaries, better that you should be doing it AMH testing and AFC. If the AFC is too low and the AMH is too low, it is better to convert the patient directly to the IVF rather than going for IUI. I never recommend that because nowadays I don't think so. It is not accessible for all of us to go and venture into IVF even though we don't have our own labs. It is better that you should be thinking twice before giving or before judging something to going for IUI or for IVF. Those patients who are having a less smaller ovaries or low reserve, it is better that one should go for IVF. Yes, Jyoti madam, it is really nice that you are attending my lectures and our discussion basically. Should IUI performed immediately post wash? See madam, nowadays the medias which is come up for the semen preparation is not required incubation. So we are not having, it is a buffer media. So it is not required incubation nowadays what we are using for semen preparation. So CO2 incubators are not required. What is the important thing is a semen preparation. After the preparation, how much time you can wait? I think it is better to do the IUI procedures once the semen sample is been processed. The semen, after giving the semen sample, and the procedure timing should not extend more than 90 minutes. So that is the dictum. So when you're talking about semen that is been given and the procedure timing, instead of that, I should be saying from our experience that once the semen sample is been processed, that we know these are the motile sperms what we are getting, it is wiser that you should be performing the IUI procedure within half an hour. Best time to do IUI: 40 hours of SCG or time of trigger. Iman, is really nice that I am interacting with you. I think the ideal time, if you go to the literature reviews and all that things, if you wanted to give a single IUI, I'm talking again, if you wanted to give a single time IUI, it is better to give a try between 40 to 42 hours, or maybe a 36 to 42 hours. But the best results will be there after 42 hours. After your trigger. Do you prefer a pre-rupture IUI or post-rupture? Jyoti madam, I will be only doing IUI. If I am giving a trigger, I should be doing a IUI after 42 hours. I will not see for the follicle is been ruptured or not ruptured, because I think in IUI it is better to go with the procedure, because the sperm survival, all of us are knowing that it is 2 to 4 hours. It is better to do the IUI rather than just checking it sonographically. Sometimes we will not able to really find out there is a free fluid or not. Really the RI values of color Doppler will not be that much effective in telling about the rupture is occurred or not. So it is better to do IUI in those patients. Sildenafil and Proganova in thin endometrium, if you have planned IUI, from which day? Santosh sir, if you wish to do a Proganova, I think it's better that once you attend the sufficient endometrium, you can stop it down, because as far as the endometrium part is considered in IUI, is required. After that the fertilization will take place in the tubes, and after that the embryos will form, and after 5 days, by that time, once your trigger is good, your progesterogenic activity is good by corpus luteum, our function of the corpus luteum support to the endometrium can be taken care by the functioning corpus luteum. Yes, Harika. On day 2, ovarian cyst more than 1 centimeter, never be called as Harika. The cyst is something about the 3 centimeter and above we called as, or for that matter some literature will say that it is 2.5 centimeter and above we called as a cyst. So the any things which is 1 centimeter we never talked as a cyst. So if it is a cyst is there on day 2, it is better to evaluate whether the cyst is a simple cyst, whether it is a unruptured luteal follicular cyst. So in that case, if you are doing IUI, it is, if at all you really wanted to be a more academician, you can do E2 levels, and you can see the serum progesterone also, whether the corpus luteum it is a unruptured corpus luteum, or whether it is a functional cyst, or whether it is a residual cyst. Then as a blood reports comes, if you are thinking that the progesterone is less or your E2 levels are less, you can definitely start with the clomiphene citrate or letrozole. But if it is just a cyst or a functioning cyst, it is better not to go with the IUI in that cycle. GSF factor in endometrial growth. Mansi, okay, just a minute. Yeah, again 1 more hour I have to go in the OT and operate. Yeah, Mansi, I have seen some specialist of giving GCSF. See, as far as the GCSF is considered, the GCSF is not been IUI. I am not advocating the IUI patients you should be trying with the GCSF. GCSF, if at all you wanted to try, you can try in a IVF cycles. Yeah, I'll talking thin endometrium, Mansi, in a great depth in couple of weeks. Yeah. Pallavi, GCSF before IUI in thin. I talked with a question which is raised by Mansi, that Pallavi, there is no need for IUI patients to do all these things because it is not cost effective. Which better protocol for resistance PCO? PCOS resistance, Iman, I think if you're talking about the PCO resistance can be differentiated into resistance because of the insulin resistance or not, or maybe just a resistance like a clomiphene citrate resistance. If it is a hyperinsulinemia, one should be doing a HOMA index to find out whether it is a insulin resistance. Then you can add a metformin, you can add a myoinositol for that matter for those patients who are having insulin resistance, which has been documented empirically. One should not be added. If at all you wanted to start the metformin can be added a preconceptional, and it has to be continued because metformin per se decreases the chances of OHSS. It decreases the chances of what you call as neonatal complications. So once you start, you can continue. Tell me the volume of a ovary, a small size. She was talking about Afroza about the small size ovaries on day 2 scan. So day 2 scan, if you found out it is a small size ovaries, can be a hypo or maybe a POF patients or maybe a DOR patients. So depending upon that, you need to understand the AFC is also the ovarian volume also. Yeah. Manisha, POF patients with the low AMH, I should advocate all of you to go for stimulation protocols. I'll go into the details of stimulation protocols when I'm talking about IVF, but those are the patients for IVF, not for per se for IUI. Pooja, yes, luteal phase support. I already, Pooja, talked this. Just I think you are come late, you join us late. You can just go through this lecture or through our interaction, and then you'll find it out. Do you suggest pre and post IUI? Pre and post IUI, I just do a single IUI, Mansi. So I don't think so. Jyoti ma'am, that's really good from your side. I am wishing that after this lockdown I can come down and we can have a in-person interaction in future. Lavi, yeah. Survival time of the sperm prepared sample in a female reproductive tract after IUI. I think this is just a theoretical discussion because there are the documentation of the live sperm after the IUI been done after 36 hours also in the pouch of Douglas. But it is always better that once you are doing a semen preparation, it should be done within half an hour IUI. It should not be too much waiting for like all the OPD should be finished and then you can go for IUI. It should not be like. It's a priority that one should be taken into account. Yes, Pooja, I think you now with all of us, it is good to see you with us in this particular discussion. Thank you. How to differentiate ideal candidates for IUI and IVF? Pooja, I think ideal candidate is depending upon the age of the female age, male factor, whether it is a severe oligoastenospermia or if it is a severe teratozoospermia or if it is immotile sperm. Then it is depending upon the AMH and AFC of the patient. So all these factors will contribute to all of us to think whether we should be going for IVF or IUI for that matter. Yeah guys, my time has come. I have to go and operate. Okay, again for last 10 minutes, hope I can finish with all the questions. If AMH is low and DOR, how to progress? Manisha, I'll be talking this in IVF protocols with the POF patients or DOR patients. However, it's really nice that you are coming into my group and watching me live. It's always nice that meeting madam in different conferences and interacting with her, your mother. Yeah. Mona Dubey, till how many hours we can use unwashed semen sample? Can we use it after 1 day? See, if you are, why you wanted to keep the unwashed semen sample into the incubator? There is no point in keeping such a sample. I don't get this idea about keeping unwashed semen sample and using it. There is a difference that there is one study which will give you a subsequent collection of the semen sample. that you collect now after 3 hours, or maybe in a day later you can collect it, so that it will increase the volume and it will increase the nidus. So in that case you can definitely. I hope, Mona, I can answer that your question here. Preeti, step up protocol letrozole after 4 tablets, no response. See, there is no point in giving another further tablets. It is better to switch over to the gonadotropins, or think that the patient is letrozole resistance. It is better to wait and cancel the cycle and start again. Bashir, it's really nice that you are watching me. I am thankful my overseas friends who are watching me. Yeah. Nazia, hi. I had ectopic pregnancies in October 2019, got a tube removed. The tube had hydrosalpinx. Should I get the remove of the tube? I can directly go for IVF. See, when the patient of this particular come down to you with the previous history of ectopic, is been operated, and the another tube, and at the time of the operative of the ectopic, it is always mandatory that you should look for the other ovary, other tube. What is the condition of the tube, whether the tube is healthy or not. There is a definitely a possibility of the ectopic is on a higher side, even if the other tube is preserved. So once the pregnancy has been documented, you need to do a scan as early as possible to see the gestational sac, whether it is intrauterine or whether it is in the tube. Again, the remaining tube, the chances of conception is a little bit decreased, but it is not less. But once you try with the IUI for a couple of cycles, and if not conceived, it is Nazia, it is better to go for IVF, depending upon the age and AFC and AMH of the patient. Pooja, again the Lupride SCG trigger. I used normally the SCG 5000 suffice. Usually if you compare to 50 recombinant SCG, comes down to 6500 urinary SCG. So that will take care of the Lupride for the rupture. Is considered the agonist trigger or dual trigger only been reserved in the patients where I had a previous COH IUI has been failed, thinking that I will have a good mature oocytes again in this particular setting. See, Harika, unruptured follicle, even with the trigger has been given. What is the next cycle? See, in the next cycle, you need to understand whether you are given a trigger with a good injectable, whether the cold chain is maintained or not. What is the potency of the drug? Because in sometimes the trigger what you are given is not the good by the company, or maybe by the manufacturing, or the cold chain maintenance is not been there. So you can change over to the good company, or maybe a recombinant SCG for that matter, or you can think of dual trigger. I have a patient with the endometritis, okay, who has persistently having unruptured follicle after the SCG trigger. See, Mona, it is better that endometritis patient has to be treated first for the endometritis, and it has to be diagnosed. That is endometritis. If you are diagnosing with the hysteroscopy, or whether it is a biopsy you are taken, it is better to give treatment. In India, most common is antitubercular treatment, or tuberculosis is much more common, so you can give. Yeah. Mansi, it's always a pleasure, because you know that's why I create. We always interact, so it is always better that you gain the knowledge once you are in this particular platform. Yeah, endometritis can be diagnosed. See, the endometritis, when you are doing the scan, you will come to know there is a free fluid in the endometrium, or there is endometrium which is not growing, or there is irregular endometrium, or hypervascular endometrium. That are the certain things. Then you can think of Suresh Kumar for this particular problem. The choice of aromatase, continuous low dose. Maher, it's really that you are taken an interest. Okay. Choice of aromatase, continuous low dose, step up aromatase. Which patients? Multifollicular development, I will go for step up. normally you can go with the continuous dose, Maher. Yeah. Aromatase, I'll see, Maher, I'll go that things in a detail of AFET protocols. I'll be talking that that in a coming months or coming weeks. Yeah. Pallavi, yeah, really I am exhausted, and after this I am going to do a emergency case in my hospital, so a little bit exhaustive when I talk continuously. Yeah. Okay, at the time of the trigger, your fluid is there in the endometrium. I think many of the time, if you're giving a estrogen on higher dose, you get this particular fluid. So it's better that when you're giving a estrogen preparation for the endometrium, and you feel there is a fluid, so it is better to wait and watch for a certain 24 hours or maybe a 1 or 2 days. Again, call the patient. If still there is a fluid, it is better to do a GCSF. There are the reports that after GCSF installation, your endometrium fluid is gone. See, my friends, I'll be really going to take these things into accounts, because this is the platform where actually what we do should be discussed rather than review literature, Cochrane data. That is mandatory. I've never said no, because I am a thorough academician, so I respect that. But practical things should be discussed. Like in a months to come, I'll be showing my laparoscopic live operatives also. So that should be fun in coming months. Yeah. So I think I'm really thankful to my overseas friends, to you, all of you. I hope this is the final, full and final as far as the IUI is considered. Henceforth, IUI, any queries will be only tackled in a Telegram group, and no further questions and no further sessions, because I think all of us are exhausted, too much of exhausted about different seminars which is going on in India about IUI. So it is better that I should be giving a full stop here about the IUI now. If any questions, you have my personal number, you have WhatsApp number, you have Telegram link. I am always there to solve any questions, any queries, or for that matter any discussions, because I want like the discussions to happen. I want interactions to know. And I am really again thankful to all of you that our group is now the largest group, you can say, where all national, international people are joining in. So ask your friends to join in to our group, so that most of us can get benefited out of it. Thank you, and hope I can perform in my surgeries in 15 minutes from now. See you all again. I'll be intimating you on Telegram as well as on this particular Facebook page. Thank you again. See you soon.